Well, another news item is this deep brain stimulation. And I don't know, have you heard much about that? I know
I
we've
read that
researched it a
article.
little bit.
Man, they are really so like this kind of goes into the what I'm saying. So now they're wanting to drill holes in your head, put electrodes, and stimulate your brain in order to try to relieve feelings of depression. And actually, the articles that you sent for me to read didn't mention using it for depression or drug addiction. It didn't mention using it for drug addiction or cravings, but I thought that's what the gist was, that it was going to maybe start being used for helping people with cravings for drugs.
So deep brain stimulation is where they cut these nickel-sized holes in your head and put these electrodes in, and I guess run the wires down to a little box, kind of like a pacemaker, but in your neck and or area. I don't know how it works, but you have these wires, these electrodes that shock your brain and try to stimulate it so that you don't crave. And it was used to treat depression, used to treat Parkinson's disease, and now they're talking about it for drug addiction. They've only done 3 surgeries that I know of. One, the guy relapsed. He went right back to drugs after the surgery. A second guy is doing better. He's helping other people, and he lives in a safe home, like a halfway house. And he also is on Suboxone, so he's got a drug to help him in addition to the surgery. So they kind of give the surgery credit without this other stuff. And then a third guy had the surgery because he was desperate. I mean, he was afraid to die on addiction, and and fear of death is solved in Jesus Christ. That's what it's all about. But yeah, this brain surgery. I mean, the reason I mentioned this after what we talked about with depression and ketamine and Special K, which they're using for depression now, is if they think it's a brain disease, then they think, okay, brain surgery makes sense. It's a brain disease. We can solve it with brain surgery. And so logically, I think they get away with it. But I'll tell you, my biggest issue with this, and I don't mind saying this publicly, I think it's unethical. I mean, what ethics committee passed this as an experimental, surgery for drug addicts? Who passed this? Who cleared this to be used in this way? And I don't think they're valuing the addicted person's life. I think, they would say they are, but I think it's exact opposite. I think they're treating them like lab rats with an experimental drug surgery that, to me, shows they don't really value life like we do, especially the life of a drug addict.
Well, I would probably counter you and say, um, I don't know if they just understand life differently than us. They fundamentally view people differently than us. Okay, so I tell people in like your little elevator speech, when you're trying to explain this, that these are materialists that believe that human beings are inherently good, and if given the right set of circumstances, we will we will improve, we will self-correct. And the problem that human beings have gone down is because there's certain set of circumstances in life, whether it be nature, nurture, environment, whether it be biological markers in the brain, is what's causing them to be self-destructive or live lives that would not be beneficial for their own self-interest. So their whole way of looking at people is like, if we could just correct their environment or correct those biological markers, those people would then be free to succeed, which you and I believe the Bible describes human beings completely opposite. We believe the Bible says that people are born inherently bad, that we are turned in on ourselves. We want only for us. We are sinners by birth and by nature. So we need, yes, I guess we need, people would call it a biological fix, but we would call it a spiritual fix. We need a new heart. We actually need God to come in and remove this heart and give us a new one, and then give us like an indwelling, life-giving spirit to enable us to do better. And really, it goes against the nature we struggle with here on this planet for the rest of our lives. Life is a constant struggle to be more like Christ, not that if I just fix a couple of markers or an environment, I will naturally flourish because I'm inherently a good person and looking out for my own self-interest in a good way.
Well, and you're very gracious to them. I hope you're right. It's I do think people with a different view are trying to help, and they're doing their best. And like you say, they see the data differently than we do, the self-correction and all that. And that's very gracious of you. I'm
Well, I
probably
would
not
say that the
there.
data doesn't support that what they're doing really is working. That's why they're
Mm-mm.
trying all this crazy stuff, like drilling holes in people's heads and sticking,
Yeah.
things in their brain to stimulate their brain. I mean, they're literally running out of answers, because this is the frustrating thing about working in addiction. Out of all the efforts they've done, what has happened with the problem as far as people dying from addiction? It's at an epidemic proportions now. Even with all of this stuff that they have done, none of it has produced any kind of lasting results. So they're just trying to figure out something. But the thing is they keep beating on the same dead horse, that fundamentally they believe that this is caused by not the person, their inner person. They believe this is outward influences that have made this person into this in this way, or maybe biological markers within their body, their chemistry, that has caused this problem. It has nothing to do with them being a fallen human being in need of redemption.
Well, and I think, to me, like you say, they're getting desperate, and the addict himself, this James Fisher, was the third one to have the surgery. He's desperate, but I think they're desperate, and I think they're hopeless. Like, they see this as a disease. There's no hope. So, he's going to continue on in this. So let's give him a $50,000 brain surgery paid by the NIDA, paid by NIDA to take care of this, this problem, and we'll just do this experimental thing and hope that it works. And it supposedly worked with one guy. It didn't work with another guy. So they're 50%. But man, I'm just I'm kind of beside myself on this one. But I don't know what else they'll try after this. Do you? What would be next? What were you going to say?
I don't know what they would try, but nothing will shock me. Nothing's going to shock me. I mean, Mark, they used to lobotomize people, so,
leeches.
Yeah. So all this is done in the name of science. And I've always struggled with attaching science to that, because it really just doesn't seem to fit what science is supposed to be, in my opinion. But I'm not a scientist, so I'm not allowed to have one, I guess. But this is really just, this is a mixture of philosophy. This is like philosophy mixed in with scientific steps, I guess. I mean, because that's the best way I can explain it. So.
That's good. Yeah, it's philosophy. It is.